Chapter 22. The Soul of the Cosmos.
What if we added more cycles to the primary rings?
Said Otto, marking on the chalkboard in the living room, demonstrating his idea. He stepped back and adjusted his reading glasses up onto his nose. Sim rested on the couch with his feet up, looking through one of the many books from the bookshelf. He shook his head in disagreement.
We already tried that once before. It'll overdraw and blow the coils. We almost lost 2 days of work because of it.
Well, we could look into constructing an additional coil to lighten the load. Maybe even create a better one.
Yeah, but you'd need to quadruple the power, and you'd have to shut down the dime circuits and coils to put a new one in. And even then, you'd have to recalibrate the computer to the dimensional bands when you turned everything back on. Not even like we can fish for that much power out of the soul anyway.
Well, what do we do then?
Questioned Otto.
Think, kid, you know more about that machine than I do. I worked in quantum mechanics during the 80s, for Christ's sakes. When I first got here, I had never heard of dime circuits or dimensional bands. Shit, a wormhole was just science fiction until I got here. Personal computers were still a brand new thing where I come from.
I know,
said Sim, dropping his head.
It's not the power that's the problem. Pulling any more would just be useless and dangerous anyway. I've heard what can happen. The thought of messing with the soul scares me. And we don't need to anyway.
Otto set the chalk down on the board and backed away for a minute. He rubbed his hands through his hair.
All right then, what's the problem?
Sim sat up from the couch and closed his book.
We have no point of reference is the problem. In subdimensional space, we don't have any reference point across worlds to lock onto or calibrate from.
In English, please, Professor.
All right. Think of it this way. It's like looking at an abstract painting and trying to make sense of it. None of it makes sense without any context, or in this case, a point of reference. If we try locking onto one ordinary signal, we lock onto every signal. At least worlds that are in danger give us a distress signal as a reference point to lock onto. If we had a new reference point to calibrate from that wasn't going to go dark on us after we saved someone, we'd have a chance.
All right, then think, kid. Erland must have talked with you about it before. Maybe given you some clue as to how to make it work?
Said Otto, removing his glasses and setting them down on the table next to him.
No, he never talked about the Ark's design or deeper mechanics with me. He only taught me what the Ark did and how. Almost like he was afraid of something or worried I might make the same mistake. I think half the time he didn't even know how some of it worked himself.
We could ask her for help,
suggested Otto. Sim and Otto both thought for a moment. They shook their heads, both coming to the same conclusion.
Great, so we're just stuck in another dead end then,
grumbled Otto. Sim and Otto could hear Dublin's dog steps thundering down the stairs, followed by Allie's footsteps.
Well, let's take a break for now,
said Sim, stretching. Dublin turned the corner at the bottom of the stairs and hurried over to greet Sim. Sim stroked Dublin's thick black and white fur.
Morning, Dublin.
Morning?
Said Allie, walking into the living room, her hair tangled on one side.
Morning, kiddo,
replied Otto, walking over to pet Dublin's head.
Were you guys up all night?
Asked Allie, noticing the books scattered around the living room in a mess again. Sim opened his eyes best he could, trying not to give away his growing fatigue. Otto laughed.
No, we just got up early.
Oh. What's on the agenda for the day, then?
Asked Allie, rubbing the sleep from her eyes and yawning.
Sim and I,
said Otto, putting his hand on Sim's shoulder,
have some things to go over with you, actually.
What things?
Asked Sim, glancing up at Otto in confusion.
I figured we should show her the underbelly. We need to go down there anyway to do an inspection. Raz is now demanding that I send him mechanical reports, which of course the council blindly agreed to. I'll probably just write some numbers down on a page, give it to him, and he'll nod and say, That's what I thought, breaking everything as usual. When he probably couldn't read a book even if it had pictures.
All right, sounds like fun. Let me go shower and get dressed, and I'll meet you guys downstairs.
Allie smiled at both of them. She called Dublin to her side and turned to go back up the stairs. Sim watched Allie walk away, his tired eyes lighting up, waiting until she was out of view before he planted himself back down on the couch. Otto watched him with a grin on his face.
Wow, I should have made a bet.
Bet what?
You're beginning to like her.
Ha.
Laughed Sim exaggeratively.
You wish.
You are. I can see it scribbled all over your face. I have 2 teenagers at home, remember? You light up the same way they would every time someone they adored walked into the room. You look at her the same way you did Arya.
Watch it. No, I don't.
Replied Sim with a scowl.
She's only a friend. And you said it yourself. No one can replace her.
That's true. I did say that. But moving on can't hurt.
Otto walked over to the table near the chalkboard and placed his glasses in his shirt pocket.
I need to get some friends my own age and not hang around old coins like you. You think you know everything.
Sim grumbled, putting his feet back up on the armrest of the couch.
Ouch, old coins.
Otto laughed, swatting Sim's feet down from the armrest.
If that's what you think of me, then come on, new money. Let's get to work.
Allie followed Dublin down into the basement with her hair still partially damp. Otto sat at the computer to the right of the Ark, writing down notes until he noticed Dublin's nose poking up next to his lap. He looked back to see Allie coming down the stairs.
Ready?
Asked Otto, getting up from his chair. Allie nodded as he waved her over toward the back of the room near the Ark. He brushed the cables on the floor to one side and revealed a wooden cellar door embedded into the floor. Otto reached down and pulled the cellar door open.
After you?
Allie looked down the opening. Within the darkness, she noticed several flashes of blue and orange arcing through the air below. Allie patted Dublin on the head, then stepped down the steps into the darkness below. The descent reminded her of a mine shaft, seeing the wooden beams helping support the tunnel below. She gazed across the rocky surface next to her, seeing the line of cable and machinery woven into the rock leading up to the Ark. Otto stepped down the steps behind her and closed the cellar door, leaving Dublin to wait at the top. Dublin scratched at the wooden cellar door with a saddened whimper. Allie stepped onto the metal catwalk at the bottom of the steps, noticing the lights around her protruding from the rocky walls. All around was a sea of mechanical wonders, turning, buzzing, and steaming throughout an endless maze of walkways. Otto reached the bottom of the steps and began to lead the way along the catwalks.
All of these power the Ark?
Asked Allie. Otto turned back to make sure she was following close behind him.
This is the Ark. The gateway upstairs is just like a computer monitor, while this is all the heart of the computer itself. When Erland built the Ark, they were starved for certain supplies and had to use whatever machinery they could find or create. Almost like a combination of every form of technology, from the dawn of the light bulb to the STS Spectre.
Allie grunted, pretending she knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what an STS Spectre is either, but I do my best to try and understand.
Joked Otto.
It's a science and engineering wonder down here, that's for sure. These walkways run for miles beneath the west end of the district.
Sim stood with his goggles on at the other end of the primary catwalk, welding away at the base of a machine in the mess of wires, spinning belts, and gears around him. He finished welding and removed his goggles to see Otto and Allie walking toward him.
How much power does it need?
A lot. Most of this isn't so much for powering the Ark as much as it is to prevent it from ripping everything apart around us. Everything on this side of the walkway supports the stability system.
Allie shifted uncomfortably, gazing around the cluttered space in a daze. The thought of standing in the belly of a machine which could tear the world around her to pieces like newspaper was a frightening thought.
You get that crack fixed?
Asked Otto.
Yeah, best I could. Probably should replace the whole thing soon. I still don't understand why Erland doubled up on everything down here. Half of this stuff is redundant.
Replied Sim with the steam blowing around his head.
I'm sure he had his reasons. Probably just wanted backups in case something happened.
Otto replied. Sim reached over and pressed the yellow button on the panel next to him. The machine in front of him sputtered and struggled to come to life. Sim grumbled for a moment.
Wait a minute.
Said Allie, noticing one machine out of the thousands around her which seemed familiar. She walked over towards Sim and stared at the machine before him for a moment. She then reached over behind Sim, squeezed the red valve on his right side, and pressed the yellow button on the panel, holding it down for a second.
Hey, don't...
Said Sim. The machine sputtered and fired back up in perfect working order. He looked at her with an astonished look.
Sorry. My dad and I worked on old cars, remember? We had an old station wagon with an engine just like this. Machines just kind of make sense to me, I guess. Or at least engines do. Check the choke next time.
Sim stood looking at her, once again realizing that the girl he figured he had understood from day one was like a never-ending box of surprises to him. Otto chuckled.
She's good, kid. Best stick to your day job.
So, what's this do anyway?
Asked Allie, circling the engine.
Spins the alternator for the gamma interference filter.
Replied Sim, fighting to keep his superior tone.
Oh.
Said Allie, scanning the covering he had just repaired.
Well, you should replace the cover rather than weld it next time. Or do all Guardians weld with their eyes closed?
Otto stood behind Sim with his back turned, laughing into his hand, enjoying the sight of Sim's ego being brought down to the dim cavern surrounding them. Allie watched Otto struggle, trying her best not to laugh. Sim looked at her, grinding his teeth.
I'm glad someone finally said it, kid.
Otto laughed.
I like her more and more every day.
Sim fought to keep his serious expression.
All right. Enough joking around. Why don't you two do something more productive than pick me clean like a couple of scavengers?
Sim said, picking up the welding torch.
Fine. We'll get started, new money.
Said Otto, grabbing the clipboard hung on the wall next to him and waving Allie over his way.
Come on, I'll show you around.
Otto led Allie away as Sim inspected his work, clenching his teeth, now mentally criticizing his own workmanship. Otto led Allie down the catwalk steps further into the caverns.
Sim's bright, but his mechanic skills do leave something to be desired. Good to know we now have one person around here who knows what she's doing.
I was just giving him a hard time.
He could use it. I think sometimes he should be reminded that despite everything, every hero has his faults.
Sim could hear Otto's words from down the way.
That's the last thing I want to be called.
He muttered. He lifted his goggles back up to his eyes and ignited the welding torch in his hand, hoping to improve upon his work more. Allie cautiously worked her way along the catwalk as she continued to follow Otto through the maze of pipes and machines.
This thing is massive.
Said Allie, mesmerized by the endless series of turns in the dense forest of machines.
Did Erland carve all this out?
The caverns existed even before Erland first arrived. He chose to start building here because they offered the perfect protection from the outside world, as well as security in case anything happened. That, and they didn't have a building big enough to store everything. Once the current arc was finished, he built the house above.
Otto stopped at a chamber along the catwalk with a solid steel door on it.
But this is what he really wanted to keep safe.
Otto said, turning the wheel on the door. He swung the door open and stepped to the side, allowing Allie to enter first. Allie stepped inside the dark chamber. Otto followed behind her as he shut the door behind him. Standing still in the darkness, Allie could hear Otto stepping around on the metal floor in front of her.
There any lights in here?
Asked Allie. Otto pulled back a small steel shutter in front of her. A wave of colorful light flooded the room. Shimmering flashes of blue, yellow, and purple light streamed from the window, illuminating the darkness. Allie bent down and peered through the window. Suspended in a small, enclosed space, beyond the one narrow window was a small, dark void, suspended in space. A black spot, bending the light around it, radiated its own rainbow of colors. The vibrant flashes of light burst from the black center and flowed around the space like ocean waves breaking upon the shoals of reality, moving in and out of time in a fluid motion, endlessly falling back toward the center. Allie watched through the window, speechless. She had seen so many strange things in her life now, but this was by far the most beautiful and strangest thing she had witnessed.
Try explaining this to the folks back home,
said Otto, looking through the window next to her.
What is it?
Allie asked, looking over at him as his face was illuminated in a bath of pink and purple light.
It's the Ark, the heart of Asphodel itself, a product of sheer human determination. I sometimes stare at it, wondering if my eyes are playing tricks on me.
Allie shivered, even as she stared at the dark, illuminated void. Like a black hole in space, only life blossomed from it, rather than being consumed. Allie felt her gaze being drawn in with each flowing, colorful wave.
Is it a black hole?
No. It's something else. It puts out energy like nothing I've ever seen before. Enough to cut through the fabric of this world around us and create a wormhole to every other. Enough to even vaporize a whole world or build one up from nothing. But that's not the strangest thing about it. The weird thing is, it only produces the right amount of power that's needed all the time. No more, no less. It generates power seemingly from nothing, and always just the right amount. Like it's connected to every world around us and draws power from all of them harmoniously. This thing would make Oppenheimer wet his drawers compared to the atom bomb. It can destroy a series of universes in a heartbeat, or start life again from the ashes. It's alive.
It's incredible. What do you call it?
Otto stared at her in the flashes of light. He looked in through the window.
The soul of the cosmos.
Dublin waited above the cellar door, greeting Allie, Otto, and Sim as they climbed back up from the depths of the Ark. Otto waited for Sim to climb up the steps before closing the trap door and returning to his computer. Sim walked over to his locker and stretched for a moment, enjoying the fresh air, away from the steam and noises of the depths below. Allie stroked Dublin's head affectionately. She watched Sim stand in front of his locker and stow his equipment goggles next to a blue helmet with an orange visor on top of his locker. Allie suddenly recalled lying in the desert sand, bare and cold, the blue and orange blur from his helmet being the first thing she had seen.
Were you wearing that when you found me?
Asked Allie, pointing up at the helmet. Sim looked over at her. He looked above the locker, realizing she was talking about his helmet. He grabbed it and rubbed away at the dirt and scuffs on the surface with his fingers.
Yeah.
What for? You've never worn it on one of our previous trips.
Sim handed her the helmet. Across its sleek, solid surface was a series of scratches, marks, and dents, engraving the helmet with its own history.
It's for more dangerous rescues,
he said, grabbing a cloth from his locker to wipe the grease from his hands.
Dangerous? Aren't all worlds dangerous, though?
Some more than others,
Sim replied. Otto leaned back away from his desk.
Every now and again, we get high-energy readings from worlds that are in danger. Energy caused by intense bursts of power from within them. Usually, it means there's a war happening where we need to go. Gun blast, cannon fire, bombs going off, all of them release bursts of energy. The more blasts there are, the more energy being expelled, which means more danger, which is also why some worlds are more prone to dragging away lost travelers.
I never knew humans had that much an impact on the other worlds around them.
Allie handed the helmet back to Sim. Sim put the helmet back up on top of his locker and shut his locker door.
I wear that and my suit as a precaution. Doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's better to have more focus on staying alive over blending in.
Why did you wear it when you rescued me then? I don't remember any battles or wars in the world I fell into.
Thunderstorms.
Otto replied, his eyes still fixed on the computer screen ahead of him. Sim nodded in agreement.
There was a thunderstorm where you were when I first arrived. Lightning can have the same effect. I wore it just in case. Turned out there was nothing to worry about, thankfully. Consider yourself lucky, though. Most people I bring back from such places don't always make it back with me alive,
said Sim.
Where did you guys find me?
Asked Allie. She looked up above the other locker to see a similar dark red helmet with a blue visor, covered in dust. A helmet long since abandoned, without its previous owner.
52 million something.
Wow, that's pretty far into the future.
BCE.
What? Wait. So you found me before life had even started. You mean to tell me that for a moment there, I was the first and only person in the world?
You were actually one of the easiest people I've had to find. The more humans expand and discover technology in each world, the more energy they produce. Within each human conflict or action, they create foreign energy or dark energy, which increases the odds of some people being passed between worlds.
Like me,
said Otto, raising his hand, referring to his incident as an electrical engineer.
Yeah. Otto's energy project produced the same foreign energy which drags worlds closer to each other. It put a strain on his world and opened a bridge from his to another. And he fell in.
So, how often do we have to go into these dangerous worlds?
It varies, but they happen from time to time,
replied Sim, making his way over to the stairs.
And when they do, you won't be coming along.
What? Why not?
That's where my specialty comes in and yours ends. I spend less time talking and more time keeping my head down on trips like that.
Sim stalked up the staircase with Allie following right behind him.
I can hold my own.
Yeah, I know. I've heard it from you before,
muttered Sim. Otto watched Sim and Allie march up the stairs, arguing, from his seat at the computer with Dublin still sitting at his side. Once they were both out of sight, he pulled the leather-bound journal he had been carrying out from under the papers below his desk and began reading it. He read the pages intently, reaching down to pet Dublin as he read.
Hey everyone, this is Kyle Friesmarsh, the voice of Twig from SEM, Adventures Across Time. If you've enjoyed your adventure across time so far, be sure to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/TS Wieland. With your support, you'll gain early access to the next chapter of the book, and even a copy of the book itself. With your contribution, more thrilling and inspiring audiobooks could be made every day through the hard work, time, and dedication of voice actors and artists from across the world, including myself, all working together. From all of us in the world between worlds, we'd like to thank you for joining us on our adventures.